Shio, my name is Chris McCoy. I'm here with Chief Sneed. Chief Sneed, we're giving some updates to the public. On this one, we want to talk a little bit about Food Lion and the situations that are happening with the Food Lion here.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I want to give a big shout out and say thank you to JJ. He's the manager over there at Food Lion. He's been great to work with. When I first talked to him a couple weeks ago about possibly doing something for our elders where we carve out a time, we started with just an hour on Wednesdays from 7 to 8. I went and met with him one day last week, and he immediately said, I'd like to expand it. Could we do 2 days? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. He said, I'd like to do 2 hours. I'm like, great, let's do it. So just want to put it out there if the public was unaware, it's from 7 to 9 a.m., 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. You are allowed to bring, if you're an elder and you have somebody who's your caregiver or who's going to assist you, you may bring one person with you to assist you in shopping. However, they can't shop for themselves during those hours. They're only there to assist.
Gotcha.
The other big shout out I want to give to is to Renessa McLaughlin and to her team
at the rec department.
At rec, yeah. So rec is the rec aides are doing shopping for shut-ins, and they are also making themselves available to assist elders as they shop. So once again, you see our tribal employees, our tribal citizens stepping up to help take care of our elders. So I want to say thank you to them. I also want to say too, I'd gotten some questions about and some comments about. We've limited access to Food Lion because we do have a lot of employees, critical employees that come on the boundary, and I've limited access to the store to our tribal citizens and residents. And I want to put out there again for our tribal citizens, understand there are people who reside on the boundary year-round who are not tribal citizens. We have folks who live full-time in campgrounds. They always have.
Right.
We have folks who live in apartments, people who rent trailers, who rent homes that reside on the boundary. They are allowed access on the boundary, or rather, they're allowed access at Food Lion. Those workers, essential workers who come in the order, the executive order I gave, that they were allowed to go to their place of work. They were allowed to stop for fuel, and they were also allowed to use drive-thrus at local fast food for meals. What they were not allowed to do was retail excursions, and the reason being was I wanted to limit the number one, the exposure at our food store, because that is a place and people need to be mindful when you go to the grocery store. You need to wipe the cart down, make sure you got your hand sanitizer, make sure when you use the keypad, hand sanitizer after that. You got to be very, very vigilant, keeping social distance. It can't be as it was when we would go to the grocery store and you say, hey, hadn't seen you in a long time, go up and hug and shake hands and all that. We can't do that right now. So I wanted to, number one, limit exposure. But the other thing, I wanted to allow time for the inventory at Food Lion to come back up. The national supply chain is stretched thin. It's starting to come back around a little bit. By limiting access, what we're beginning to see now is those essential items like meats and produce and milk and eggs and those things are starting to come back up. And the other thing is, if you live in Waynesville or if you live in Silva, we'll use Waynesville. You've got Publix, you've got Walmart, you've got Ingles, you've got a Super Ingles, you've got multiple dollar stores. We have one food store and we have $1 store. Also, if you live in Waynesville, they actually have services where there's an app, you put your food order in, somebody does the shopping, and they deliver it to your house. We don't have that. So I'm just trying to protect the limited resources that we have.
This wasn't coming from a bad place.
It wasn't.
This is just a protection piece for the...
It is, and those are hard decisions in the sense that, we want to be compassionate to people, but at the same time, I have to protect the health and welfare of our people, and that's my top priority. So that was the reason for that decision.
Great. Well, thanks. If there are any updates to that moving along, please come back on and we'll talk to the public about that.
Thank you.
Ski.